So I would now like to invite Miss Vibhuti Sharma, consultant at Wazir Advisors. Miss Vibhuti Sharma is a fashion technology graduate from NIFT and MBA from IIT Madras. She works as a consultant at Wazir Advisors and have been instrumental in delivering several strategy assignments for Indian and international clients. She is a keen enthusiast about sustainability, textiles and fashion. So now we have our 4 panelists in this session. The first being Miss Khushbu Maheshwari. She is an Innovation Associate at Fashion for Good with a primary focus on end-of-use solutions within the Asian market. Over the course of 3 years, she has actively engaged in scouting and collaborating with innovators and key stakeholders to scale innovation and drive disruptive change in the fashion industry. At the forefront of her efforts, Khushbu spearheads the Sorting for Circularity India project, a pioneering initiative introduced by Fashion for Good. This project aims to establish a robust infrastructure encompassing sorting, mapping and recycling technologies, bringing together diverse stakeholders from the industry. So, inviting our second panelist, Mr. Ranjit Sasi, Director, Business and Operations, Reverse Resources. He is currently working with Reverse Resources in the capacity of Director, Business and Operations, India. His work involves sensitizing the Indian apparel industry on the need for traceability and hence the opportunity to building circularity in the textile value chain. He has worked closely with brands, manufacturers, recyclers and waste handlers, ensuring setting up of the circularity ecosystems across major apparel clusters in India. He has more than 20 years of experience in the textile industry and have worked with global companies like Intertech, TUV, SUD in India and Sri Lanka in various senior management capacities. He is a textile engineer with an MBA and Masters in Strategic Marketing from University of Wollongong, Australia. Now I invite our next panelist from the session, Mr. Garvit Sahdev, co-founder Infinite X. He is the co-founder of Infinite X, where he is trying to accelerate the transition towards circular fashion in India using digital product passports. Previously, Garvit has worked with PwC and CEEW, where he closely watched the policy and development space. He has also worked with AYM Syntex in new product development. He is an MBA from IIM Kashipur, MTech from IIT Delhi and BTech from TIT Bhiwani. Now, I would like to invite our last panelist of the session, Mr. Vivek Mehra, co-founder and Chief Sustainability Officer at Onlygood. He is a co-founder and Chief Sustainability Officer at Onlygood, a technology firm based in Gurgaon. Over the last 25 years, Vivek has been leading technology teams across industries in USA, Europe and India with a focus on digital transformation, data analytics and system design. He is currently working on the carbon emissions management for multiple industries including apparel, automotive manufacturing, hospitality as well as food and beverages. He is passionate environmentalist and is helping industries balance growth with sustainability. So I hereby request our moderator, Ms. Vibhuti Sharma, to please start the panel discussion.
Thank you so much. So everybody, welcome to the post-lunch panel where digesting information is going to take a whole new meaning. But jokes apart, we are here to discuss a very serious issue since morning we've been talking about anything, there's an issue that comes up, that is sustainability and managing the textile waste that is created. So we come to a very important topic about how to manage this waste that the textile industry is creating. And the textile and apparel industry is now waking up to this effect it has on the environment. And we are now planning to shift to take, make, dispose model of linear model to circularity. So now we will be discussing a very important topic and talking about textile waste. About 9% of the global textile waste that is generated, it is being done by India alone, and that translates to about 8,000 kilotons. So this enormous amount of waste that is generated, it is important that it is put into the loop again of the supply chain and reused. So now if we talk about this 9% of textile waste, it has pre-consumer waste as well as post-consumer waste. And when we talk about just the post-consumer waste, whatever is going back into the supply chain, that is merely 10 to 12%. So it is an urgent call for us to switch from a linear model to a circular model. So now without further ado, I'll start the discussion with my esteemed panelists. And since Khushbu has been working as an Innovation Associate for Fashion for Good, and she's heading the Sorting for Circularity India initiative, I would want Khushbu to answer, where does India actually stand among the textile value chain and when it comes to waste management practices?
Thank you, Vibhuti. It's been an honor to be part of this panel as well, and thank you to the Wazir advisors team for inviting me. Before I step into what has been happening in India, I just want to give a brief intro to what Fashion for Good is as well. So we are a company based out of Amsterdam. We started in 2017 with an aim to sort of make fashion good with the implementation of technologies into the supply chain. So our aim is to support the disruptive innovations across the supply chain, be it in raw materials, wet and dry processing, end of use, where recycling and sorting actually came across. So we support the hands-on project management to these innovations. We support in the investments opportunities that can be generated, but also we collaborate with brands and manufacturers for implementing these innovations into the supply chain. And we do this via certain pilots as well as projects. Pilots could be one-on-one pilots with the brands, manufacturers, innovations, but projects actually includes a lot more stakeholders or different stakeholders. So just to give an example of the project, even Vibhuti mentioned, so Sorting for Circularity India has been, I'm leading that project in India itself, and this project came across given that there exists a challenge of addressing the textile waste within the region. And even the players in this region are trying to understand what's actually happening with the textile waste. So we started or commenced this project in 2021 October with an aim to understand first what is actually the textile waste landscape of India, and then pilot the technologies or work with the technologies to actually create or address the challenges of the textile waste. So our first deliverable was based on a study or a report that we did with on our on-ground consultant, Satva Consulting, as well as Saha Zero Waste, and also Reverse Resources. So we four partnered together to for the first 6 to 8 months to just deep dive into the textile waste industry of India and try to map out where exactly the textile waste exists, what are these manufacturing hubs, what are these recycling hubs, as well as what are the quantums of these textile waste. So after our study, after our 8 months of actually getting into the textile waste side, we realized that it accounts for, or India actually generates 7.7 million tons of textile waste across pre-consumer as well as post-consumer. Given that pre-consumer is a low-hanging fruit, it's been utilized somehow, but a better, higher potential value can actually be realized from pre-consumer waste as well. Post-consumer waste, it's a difficult waste stream altogether, includes a lot more many more stakeholders as compared to the pre-consumer. But we have been utilizing this waste somehow, but not back into the textile industry. It's more going to the other industries or the home textile industries, and also ending up into incineration and landfill. So after conducting that study, we realized that there are a lot of recycling hubs, as we all know. I'm pretty sure in Tirupur we have a recycling hub or collection and sorting hub for post-industrial waste. We also have open-end yarn spinners out there. Then in Panipat area we have more for post-consumer recycling hub. Then in Kandla, where we receive the imported materials, but when it actually has to enter into the country, the material gets mutilated over there and then sent to the Panipat recycling hub for further processing. And part of it also is being sent towards other countries like Africa. Then we also, in Delhi, in Bangalore, in Tirupur, these are the three major manufacturing hubs which are producing a lot of post-industrial waste, which are somehow being utilized, but more into informal setup, so to say. So we have a very big informal setup within the post-industrial sector, and I'm pretty sure all of you are working, are from Delhi, you have also visited certain areas already. Then in the post-consumer domestic, given this wasn't being mapped out properly, we tried to map it out for two metropolitan cities in Delhi and Bangalore, and we realized that it's a huge among us, like it's quite huge amount of waste which is not being utilized properly. So I will of course talk about the pilots that we are also conducting maybe in the future discussions itself. But if we talk about textile waste, there is huge opportunity that India has, given that we are producing a lot of textile waste in post-industrial as well as post-consumer. But this is more for the informal structure right now. So we need to shift towards the formal structure. And there has been a robust mechanical recycling system set up in India already, but the technologies needs to be more advanced. Traceability needs to come into the picture, where reverse osmosis is already playing a role, and I'm pretty sure Ranjit is going to talk about it. Then, yeah, there are things already happening in this area, but to make it or to utilize the material for a better value, that still needs to be conducted, and it's still in the process of happening. And of course, policy interventions is something that is also going on. There are ongoing conversations happening, but it needs to come as soon as possible. So yeah, that's
Right, Khushbu. As you said that we've taken the step in the right direction, but still we have a lot of things to do and a lot of technological advancements to become a global player in those textile waste management. So I'll come to Ranjit, and Ranjit, I would want to ask you, what is the drivers of this change? Why are we moving towards circularity? How are we waking up to the need of moving towards a circular supply chain?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ranjit from Reverse Resources. Challenging time slot to be in just after lunch, but we'll make sure that you're awake and there's a lot of information that's coming your way for you to process. Firstly, thank you to the OGTC management team, Karan Kapoor, also Wazir Advisors for setting this up beautifully, Prashantji and Varun, like you always do. The events are set up pretty beautifully. So having said that, now circularity is being spoken about quite a lot, sustainability is being spoken about quite a lot. The drivers that we see from our experience of being in this industry for the last 7-8 years, before I even get into the drivers, I think it's important that I give you the context of where I'm coming from. So Reverse Resources is a software as a service platform based out of Europe, and we work with manufacturers to ensure and to help them trace and track the textile waste movement, thereby helping them in the whole circularity, in the concept of circularity. And we work with multiple brands across, multiple global brands, many manufacturers across India, and right now we have around 20,000 tons of waste being moved through our platform, more than 200 manufacturers onboarded. So this is where we are at. So what we see from our global interactions with brands, with policymakers, with manufacturers, the key drivers of driving circularity as a concept. First and foremost, I should say this is about policy and regulatory framework, the push that this gives to the entire ecosystem to start working on circularity. So I think that would be the first one. Second is now with multiple tools that have come up in this ecosystem, Infinitex being one of them, reverse resources obviously. So there are tools that are now available for brands, manufacturers to trace and be transparent in the way they work with textile waste. So traceability and transparency is also a key driver for manufacturers to demonstrate that the work that they do. That would be the second pillar, I would say, or driver. One other thing that we are seeing is there is a rapid increase in the way innovations and technology is coming up in the recycling sector. Now, for your information, the most recyclable textile material would be 100% cotton, knits, solid colors. This is the most recyclable and in-demand textile waste. What that means is this material can actually come back into the supply chain as yarns or as fiber. However, there are a lot of other textile types, waste types like cotton poly or cotton elastane, which at this point of time don't come back to the fashion supply chain because the recycling capability of these textile waste is much lower. Having said that, we are now seeing that more and more recyclers with their better technologies that are coming up are now even able to recycle that. So that will again further push circularity as a concept. Increased awareness. I have a daughter who's 15 years old. I can see her buying pattern. So there is an increased awareness among the new generation kids, youngsters about their buying patterns and buying decisions per se. So increased awareness I feel is one way contributing to this. And of course organizations like Fashion for Good, IDH, Nowadays Foundation, there are many who actively push initiatives, push pilots, and so this also creates some kind of a movement with respect to these concepts. I think these are the key drivers. Thank you.
Garvit, I'll take this question with you also. So what do you think are the drivers when it comes to shifting towards a circular supply chain?
Thank you, Vibhuti. This is Garvit, Sahdev. I'm a co-founder of Infinitex, and I've been in this space for last 4.5 years. I've been following reverse resources from the start. What I see is that circular economy in general is not a new term. Right? We have been hearing this term from the last decade itself. But right now, it is moving from think tanks to actually policy makers. So last decade, we were seeing a lot of reports coming, a lot of discussions were happening between the think tanks that what will be the ideal circular economy, right? How we will move from linear economy to circular economy, what will be the transition strategies and all those things. But I think in this decade, in the starting, in the pandemic years itself, a lot of people have seen that, okay, these are the definite future we can build around circular economy. And they are taking real policy initiatives. So for example, if you see a lot of discussion around legislations which are coming up from EU around circular economy, right? So that has given a definite future to investors, to business people and all those people, right? Because what we say is like in business, what we need a clear idea of future. Because if we are putting in like 100 rupees in an idea, I want to be sure that I'll get 150 out of it and it will not suddenly change, right? So there need to be a certain certainty in the environment if I'm taking any business decision, and it is true for brands, it is true for even recyclers, everyone. So I think now policy regulations are creating that kind of certainty in the market, giving a sure picture to everyone that okay, this will happen, right? It can take 2 years, it can take 5 years, but yes, it will happen. And based on that, all big brands, small brands, even a lot of startups are looking at this opportunity and entering into the market at different parts of it. So I think if we talk about one major driver, it is regulatory.
So we've also been saying that buyers are one of the major drivers when it comes to brands shifting towards sustainability or there being a shift in the policy making decisions. So since you are very closely working with the consumers, do you think it is an on-ground reality? Is it that buyers or the consumers actually drive this decision of recycling or a model that is based on resale or circularity of the supply chain?
This is again a very interesting question, Vibhuti. So what I understand from this is that if consumers have to drive any change, they first have to understand it, right? So I worked on a project around sustainability in food value chain, where we were actually measuring the complete footprint in different dimensions like plastic footprint, water footprint, carbon footprint, and we were actually communicating that to customers. So since they started understanding that, okay, this decision is impacting the environment in this way, and if I choose plan B, it will create this impact. So that easy communication was introducing consumer pressure, like consumer awareness, and that pressure was going to brands, distributors, and that, right? If we come to circular economy, it's a very, very wide term. The economy world within itself is a very wide term, right? It complete value chain, supply chain, everything, right? So if we talk to consumers saying that, okay, this is a circular product and this is a circular economy thing, right? You have to pay 10% premium for that. Like, it will not get communicated directly. And this is, like I'm saying, from my own experiments also. So in pandemic, we tried to sell circular masks, right? Whether people were understanding that, okay, if some take back scheme is attached to it and whether they are ready to pay premium for that. That was not successful. We started a marketplace also, just like Myntra, like that, just to understand this consumer behavior, that whether consumers are going to pay premium for circularity, right? Customers are paying premium for sustainability, but whether they pay premium. So that was also not a good case, right? But now, after a few pilots, what we understood is that if we simplify circularity for consumers, and if we bring that closer to consumers. So for example, my problem statement is that after using this t-shirt for 4 years, I do not know what to do with this. Right? So that is the problem statement with me. So instead of saying that, okay, this t-shirt is circular, just tell them that, okay, this t-shirt has its own free take-back guarantee scheme. And we'll come to your doorstep for this, right? In India, we have seen these food delivery startups have created that need of, everything at doorstep, right? So you can pitch that. As a brand also, you can give this thing. And we have been piloting with the marketplace right now. And in this, pop-up events, we are going. And we are actually telling customers that, okay, if you have this QR code, it will help you to return this anytime, like even after 5 years, just after tapping this QR code. And that is clearly hitting the consumers, because now they know that, okay, this is the pain point of mine which is being solved. I think from that way, slowly, the whole consumer pressure will build.
I think at the crux of it, knowledge is where the problem is from the consumer's end. Otherwise, there's an inclination towards circularity. Right. So, Vivek, now I'll come to you. Since you're not just focused on textile and you have a wide variety of industries that you cater to, can you please help us understand where textile industry is in terms of waste management vis-a-vis what the other industries are doing currently?
So, no, thank you to Wazir and Karni Kapoor for this forum. I think I'm a technologist, and I see myself as an outsider to the textile and the apparel industry. But having worked within the last 10 years, I have some observations. I think one of the key items within the circularity aspect is, I think both what Ranjit and Garvit were saying, and Khushbu as well, are very true, that the drivers are on the ground, but a lot of it is very anecdotal, which is that affluent economies, the customers will pay higher for greener fabric or t-shirts, right? Or yes, there's regulatory framework, etc. Although those are real. But they're on the ground. What I believe is that environmental sustainability does not work in exclusion from economic sustainability or social or human. They're all tied together. If as a business it's not viable for me to put in the capex for putting in a solar plant, ultimately I don't care what happens to the planet, right? So if I don't exist as a business, I mean, everything is a moot point. So I think from a circularity standpoint, the drivers are real. The penalties are slow in coming. The enforcement is lax, especially with all the turmoil in Europe. The regulation is there. We are seeing it. So we work not just with apparel, but also with automotive. So just to step back, we're a software company. We're a tech platform for carbon emissions reduction and analytics. It's machine learning and IoT based. But how it's being used is to reduce carbon emissions. First, understand what are carbon emissions and how to reduce them. In automotive, the pain is a little more real. Europe just announced CBAM, which is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So Jan 1, 2026, there is a new law that will tax any imports into the EU from any country in certain industries like steel, fertilizer, energy, and a few others. Textile and apparel will likely be next, so it's coming. This is in addition to the CSRD, the European Directive on Carbon Emissions, and each country's own. Like in the UK, for example, if you bid for any public contract, if you don't disclose carbon, you can't even apply. So all those things are there, they are real, and there are barriers to entry for Indian apparel. But I think when we talk about the circular economy particularly, the driver should be much more fundamental, which is how do I make money off this? If I'm recycling as a business, where do I get the revenue? It should not be that, oh, you have to reduce pressure, margin pressure, right? Or it has to be that the buyer is asking for a discount, right? And you have to eke out the sustainability expenditure from that little margin. I mean, you can't squeeze the worker anymore. It's a very labor-intensive industry. So what then are you left with in terms of levers, right? It's really technology and data. So in all of the discussion today even, right, or when we talk to clients, apparel I feel has been a laggard when it comes to tech adoption, and by tech I don't mean technology as relates to materials and substances and chemicals and bio similars and things like that, but really when it comes to information technology, which is really data, right? It's been an outlier actually. If you look at other industries that have leapfrogged, we take financial services, nobody will bat an eyelid if you say, oh, half our financial services company is made up of IT people. It's not a surprise. They are. As is with pharma, as is with even automotive, right? Where the apparel hubs are, they are adjacent to the automotive hubs. And look how they adopt technology. I mean, right from the manufacturing supply chain to the data supply chain, this whole industry 4.0 concept where they have a digital twin. Everything is done digitally before they even touch a bolt. So there's no reason apparel should be a holdout and not embrace IT. And that's one of the challenges. I think it's more of a timing thing, and the industry I feel is in transition. But at the end, I feel when we talk about a circular economy, it has to be linked to economic sustainability, not just environmental. And number two, it has to be linked to carbon emissions. Because why? Because carbon is the only quantifiable aspect of the ESG universe. If I recycle sitting here in Delhi, I send it to China to recycle, right? The carbon footprint is immense. And yes, I've recycled and I'm very green, but when I measure the carbon, I'm completely brown. And if I don't disclose, that's another matter, but eventually you will have to disclose. So circularity without carbon is misleading and incomplete. And if there's no benefit tied at the ground level, it's not going to happen.
Right. So even when we're talking about saying that we are green and turning out that we are brown, so there's a lot of concept of greenwashing that is happening. And very recently, EU has come up. They have been talking about banning the carbon neutral claims by 2026 until and unless they are entirely proven. So nobody can come and say that we are carbon neutral or we are carbon zero just like that. So that will be banned by 2026, which is in talks in EU. So how do you think that is going to shape the future of circularity in India?
Yeah, so I think carbon neutrality, if you think about it at a fundamental level, is a farce, right? If I'm a breathing human being, I'm emitting carbon, and there's just no way I can get around that, right? So when people talk about carbon neutrality or companies talk about carbon neutrality, essentially what they're talking about is offsets, right? We're not talking about conscious consumption. That's not going to happen. We will consume more, we will grow as a planet and pollute more, right? The question is how to mitigate it. So if we look at becoming carbon neutral, it essentially means buying offsets. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul, essentially, right? But I don't want to tarnish my hands, and that's what the Europeans are doing. All the brands, they're sending it where the supply chains are. They're pushing the burden. The developed economies giving the burden to emerging economies and so on. I mean, that's how it works, because that's how the economics works. But I think there is a play for technology again to make the circular economy happen. It will not happen by accident. It will have to be by design. And I think all of the apparel manufacturers in the room should think about why sustainability is not part of design. Why is it seen as a compliance burden or somebody else's burden that's being shoved down my throat, right? Or it's a margin reduction. It doesn't have to be. It's an opportunity, it's a revenue engine if you just think about it strategically, right? Why is it that there's no technology advisor on the board of an apparel company? It's not typical, at least I've not seen it. once that happens, then it's by design. It's sustainability by design. It's built into your product, into your supply chain, into your carbon emissions, into your recycling, as Ranjit and Garvit are mentioning. Then it's not something that you apply a band-aid on a wound that's bleeding, right? Why is it bleeding there in the first place, right? So I think it's a myth to think of it as a burden. I feel circularity will happen as it should, and we will benefit the planet. It's just we have to think of it more strategically versus point in time.
So now, Ranjit, I'll come to you, since we've been talking about the European Union and the legislations that they're coming up with. How are they going to shape the future of circularity in India? So,
the EU strategy for sustainability and circularity, essentially it is about the social and environmental impact of fast fashion, essentially, right? So it talks about textile waste, which is probably around 92 million tons is what I understand is the textile waste landscape globally, going up 60% by 2030, right? And 35% of textiles that is produced is wasted even before it reaches the consumer. So these are big bad numbers, right? So the EU strategy is basically designed on this, and the pillars that they are built in is on designing with the eco sense, designing with circularity in mind. It talks about microplastics, it talks about labeling, talks about traceability. I'm happy it talks about traceability. It talks about these essential pillars on which the entire strategy is based, and the push that EU is having is by 2030 that most of the fashion brands design circular and have products which can be reused or recycled easily than what it is now. So essentially, this definitely translates into a business opportunity or business criteria for manufacturers out in India as well. The brands are now needing, as part of the EPR requirements, brands are now needing to give data on textile waste production, where is it going, what's happening to it, and slowly but surely we are seeing that we at this point of time, around 50 to 60 global brands use our platform for data collection. Around 14 global brands are paid members on the platform, and they're onboarding suppliers just so that they can get a dashboard where they can see how much of a waste am I generating and where is this waste going at. Is the waste going to use case which is of highest value that the waste can generate? So we are seeing a good amount of traction. We are seeing a lot of manufacturers who are wanting to onboard by themselves, wanting to showcase, saying that, okay, look, with me, I give you good products, I also can give you traceability of where the textile waste is going and ensuring that it is coming back to the supply chain. So we're seeing good amount of traction there, and there are companies, we are talking about MAS in the afternoon, so there are companies who now have designations or responsibilities within the organization which cite circular partnerships as a role that they do. So there are companies who have gone to that level, there are companies who have started working on it, but I guess it is a matter of time, and it is inevitable that factories and the ecosystem gears up and to work with this challenge and opportunity rather.
Right, absolutely an opportunity. So Ranjit, one more question that I have for you is, like you mentioned, brands. So how are brands pushing towards a circular supply chain? How much is their involvement, and how are they spearheading a shift that we are seeing today?
I would look at it this way. So brands definitely have interest in doing this, and also manufacturers, as we are realizing now, have also stepped up, saying that I don't need the brands to tell me, I want to do it myself. So we are seeing brands which now are looking at models wherein they can have long-term agreements with recyclers, nominating a recycler, having a long-term agreement and buying back the yarn from them. So we are seeing good amount of work that's happening in this space, and this will continue to build and grow from here.
Garvit, do you have any inputs on that?
I think brands are not spearheading, like I said. So it's that they are also following the pressure which is from regulatory side or from the consumer side, and I think there is no other way for them to move ahead. So they're just mapping out what are the risks and opportunities in front of them in the next 5 years, and based on that they are taking decisions.
Now that we've talked about the Indian industry, I want Khushbu to take up what is happening at the global level. What are the technologies that are coming up at the global level, and how well are they faring?
Right. To be honest, because we are working with technologies across the globe, but we do have certain technologies that are also coming out of India, and quite amazing technologies, but also certain global technologies that are sort of building their base in Asia, and India being one of the countries, given that the supply chain is here. So there are a lot of technologies outside if I have to take it from the global perspective, if under recycling, if I have to talk about is, we might have heard of RenewCell. That's basically a chemical recycling technology that's able to create cellulosic pulp with the textile waste right now, and they work with spinning partners to create specific yarns. And certain brands have also stepped into the partnership with RenewCell, and very recently they opened up their major big facility itself in Europe. Then we have, similar to RenewCell, there is Infinited Fiber company as well, who's also working to create cotton-rich recycled material, mostly cellulosic pulp. Then because there are the materials that can be recycled right now is more in the cotton and cotton-rich category. But then polyester is another way to look at it, because currently the recycled polyester that we use is more with the bottle polyester, which is not exactly the recycled polyester of textile industry. So there are a few technologies that are coming across, let's say Ambercycle, who are based out of US, that's working with textile to textile recycling from a polyester end, and they are also creating pellets, which then can be turned into the yarn. Then the other two, like cotton and polyester, these are the two major compositions that recyclers are working around, but the recyclers are also developing into the polycotton blends. That's another interesting composition to work around with, given that it also accounts for a big quantity. So there's a technology called CIRC, which is again based out of US, who are working with the polycotton material and the mix and trying to separate the material itself. You all might have heard of ICAHT already, and ICAHT has been working in developing or researching for how to separate the cotton and polyester blends itself. They're able to create cellulosic powder, which can be then utilized into the farmland to sort of support the yield of the farm, and then the polyester can be separated and spun back into the yarn again. There are another technologies, one of them is also from Australia called Blocktex. They are also working on the similar pattern of what ICAHT and CIRC is doing, more from a chemical side again, and they're able to separate the polycotton blends itself. So there are a lot of technologies that are coming across, especially from a chemical recycling end, from Europe, US, Australia, different regions. But if they have to look at the feedstock, they have to enter into the Asian market. And that's what we are trying to sort of support these technologies to actually come to these regions, be it India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, where a lot of waste is being generated, and sort of set up their plants here. That's one way to go about it, if I have to talk about the recycling side. But on the sorting angle as well, for recyclers, given that they need specific compositions, the material needs to be sorted accordingly then. So for post-industrial, it's easier to do it at the factory floor itself, where you just mostly need to create an awareness within the suppliers to sort the waste at the factory floor. Whereas for post-consumer, it's slightly difficult or complicated to identify the composition just with the manual touch, which has been happening in the Indian landscape. So even on our projects, we are working with different types of automated sorting technologies, such as Matoha and Bequiza, who are again based out of UK and Europe. They are able to identify the compositions of the garment with their near-infrared spectroscopy, and also able to sort of separate it with the colors. Because given that, as even Ranjit said, 100% cotton composition, knitted, solid colors is something that what the recyclers are looking at. So even at a post-consumer level, that needs to be separated. And we need technology interventions to sort of have that idea of, especially on the data side, but also on what are those compositions that's coming around. So under automated sorting technologies, there are many more in Europe, like Tomra, Fibersort, who are there. But I'm pretty sure in the Indian landscape as well, these technologies are looking for such markets to enter into, again, given that the waste exists here. Then on the resale side or the re-wearable side, there have been a lot of platforms that have developed their own re-wearable section and trying to support the marketplace for re-wearables. Like Trove is one of the examples that's working, Responsible is another example that's working. With the brands as well, directly with the brands, where the brands integrate with their resale marketplace with certain technologies, and they sort of collect the material, wash, iron, and then resell it as a second-hand product. In India also, there are a few technologies that are coming up. Infinitex is also worked on this as well, and we also have Relove, that works with a peer-to-peer sales system where they have a brand integration in between, and they are also trying to repair or sell the repaired, actually the defected pieces from the manufacturing setup to the consumers itself, again while educating the consumers through the social media platforms. So in the end-of-use sector, there are a lot of technologies and innovations that's working across, and of course reverse resources, how can you forget them? They are working, and they're the biggest innovator for the transparency and traceability within the textile waste value chain. They're also based out of Estonia, that's Europe. They started from there and then expanded to Asia. Again, given the market is here for post-industrial waste. So yeah, these are the few technologies, innovations at a global level.
Right, so when we come to India, what is the future of the technological advancements going to be in India, like maybe in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, so building on this as well, as I have been giving certain examples that have been happening in India, and I'm quite proud to say that because when we entered the Asia market in 2020 as Fashion for Good, we started scouting for such technologies and innovations from Asia. And there have been a lot of development research that is being done by the institutes that work for textile industry, but also the research institutes or the education institutes. And you might have heard of Fool that has come out of IIT itself, that's able to create leather material from the flower waste. There are many more technologies out here in India. There's AltMat, which is able to work with hemp fiber, giving a complete different option to take in cotton, for instance. Then there is one KB Calls, where they are from Pune. They are able to create dyes with the help of microbes, which doesn't require water. So waterless dyeing is their technology. So to be honest, there are a lot of technologies that are working out. It's now just to sort of support in their scaling of the technologies, which definitely comes from the investments, the funding, but also how it can be implemented into the supply chain. So these technologies have been piloting with our brand partners, but they have to step into the supply chain itself going forward. And for the end-of-use sector, as I also mentioned, there has been a robust mechanical recycling landscape, but they are very limited and very limited to taking specific compositions right now and very clean compositions itself. But if we have to go into the blends of the material, certain setup of advancement of the mechanical recycling needs to come into the picture. Elastane removal is sort of a technology that even Indian landscape is sort of exploring. Then chemical recyclers who are from outside needs to enter into Asian markets to sort of support the mechanical recycling system. So India does have those opportunities, and there has been a lot of work that the innovations have been doing. We already have 2 great examples and 3 great examples here who are working in this industry. So as again, technology is a way to go ahead for circularity and sustainability, and I personally believe if a technology is implemented into the supply chain, it's easier to work on the sustainability and circularity aspects, but that awareness and knowledge needs to be still created. So.
Thank you, Khushbu. Vivek, I'd like you to answer the same question. In terms of technological advancements, what is your opinion that future for India is going to be in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, so I think if I were to wear a supplier hat and if I have like 4 or 5 factories in India and I want to participate in a circular economy, a carbon-driven circular economy, I think as Khushbu mentioned, right, new technologies will keep coming and there's an evolutionary aspect to this, both upstream and downstream, right? I don't need to be an expert as a supplier in knowing how I can extract more fiber from a loom or what is the best chemical to extract elastine, etc. Right? Those are the jobs of the recycling experts or the textile plant, etc. I just need a strategy to plug into the upstream and downstream. I need to bring back focus into what I can do without things that look like they are capex required, right? So what do I have in my purview today as a supplier? I have a beginning and an end for a value chain. I'm running some machines. I have a labor-intensive setup, but I have data, right? How do I monetize the data? And I'll give an example. So one of our clients, again from this group alone, they measured a saving of 200 tons of carbon dioxide, right, in a given year. Most of it came from energy efficiency, which is roughly about 2 lakh units, kilowatt hours of grid electricity. 2 lakh hours translates at 10 rupees is 20 lakhs. In 1 year, one element, they are saving 20 lakhs. Now that's money that I didn't know I had. I can now plug into the best recycler, I can plug in now to the best, biofabric or whatever. And there's no capex. So there's a lot of money that's riding. I mean, for another industry, right, what we are finding is you may have an aspect of your supply chain that's already carbon neutral. Maybe you have a plant that is producing one dress that is run by solar, recycled water, you have an STP, etc. And you can list that on a carbon exchange and monetize those carbon credits. There are enough polluters in the world looking to buy those credits. Again, no capex required. All you have to do is just measure. So there is an aspect of a strategy, certainly. You need to know what your goals are, how are you going to reduce your wastage, your pollution, your carbon over a period of time. From that you derive, okay, what are best-in-class, outsourcers, recyclers, and then what do I have that I can monetize? So I think in the hustle for operations, we miss the data we already have. So first is just stop and look. I mean, that's what I would start. If I want to really participate and take out the marketing noise and everything and just save money for my company, I will start there.
So we do have a bright future ahead of us, but definitely challenges coming our way, like you mentioned about data collections, and you were talking about data reliability as well. So Ranjit, I'd like to ask you, what are the other challenges that we face in this shift towards circularity?
Well, 2 aspects to it. One is, let's look at it globally. Now, one of the challenges, okay, the brands understand there is policy framework that's coming up, so there is a need to go circular. The brands understand that, but there is a cost that's associated with it. Now, the cost is, it could be cost to innovate, find out new ways of doing things. Cost for technology, you need to get new recycling technologies in place. You need to understand what can you do better, what technological aspects do you take up to get there. So I think that cost is one major challenge right now. Who's going to take the cost? Well, right, so brands, or is it manufacturers, or so who in the ecosystem would kind of take up that cost? I think that's one big challenge to look at it globally. At India level, our manufacturers, our ecosystem here, I think there is a need to have more awareness about where this is heading. This definitely is here to stay, and the manufacturers, the waste handling sector, the recyclers, they have to rise up to take up this challenge and opportunity. And yeah, awareness, I think, is one major issue at a national level. Globally, there is awareness, but I guess then the cost becomes a thing that's spoken about. Thanks.
Garvit, do you want to add something?
Adding upon what Vivek and Ranjit said, I think in India especially, we don't have one segment of this complete industry that is like collection and sorting part. like end of the use basically, right? So we have like spinning, weaving, even retail, everything is all sorted. We have like recyclers also, upcyclers also, and all those people. But what we are missing on large part is that we don't have a proper intelligent sorting and collecting industry there in India. And I think that is the point where most of the value get lost, right? So for example, even if talk about a simple t-shirt, it might have a value, resale value of 200 rupees, right, at the end of the use point. But if it is not collected well, if it is not sorted well, or if it is not taken care well, it will not reach a buyer, right? And the whole 200 rupees value will get lost, right? So I think that whole infrastructure, that whole segment is missing, and we definitely need policies from governments, vision from leaders, textile industry leaders who want to venture into this new segment which is popping up. Definitely a lot of input from all technology players who can make it more efficient, because right now we cannot talk about building a very conventional industry there at this point, right? It has to be very technologically advanced right now, right? So like Khushbu mentioned, so there are a lot of startups which are working on automatic sorting, automatic collection, all those steps, right? So that needs to be brought in India too, if we want to capture the opportunity of the volume which India has to be as a supplier of the post-consumer and pre-consumer waste to brands or manufacturers of the world.
You've covered the next question I was about to ask you about the future outlook. I will pass it on to Ranjit. So what would be the future outlook of the circular supply chain in India?
What we are seeing now is we are seeing that manufacturers are, though there is a lack of awareness per se, there are manufacturers who have taken the first step in the direction. There is also a waste handling sector within India which is unorganized. So there is a need to organize the waste handling sector. And also about recycling, so India has been historically a recycling country, so we've never, we take a product and then take it to the last mile, so to speak, right? So the recycling industry is here. We are seeing a lot of investments happening in the recycling industry within India, predominantly mechanical recycling. So there is a need to collaborate much more. Probably there is a need to give in a little, understand, step into each other's shoes. It could be manufacturers, it could be waste handlers, it could be recyclers. Step into each other's shoes, be more empathetic and listen and collaborate. I think collaboration, communication is, I think, the best way to proceed. There would definitely be challenges as we move ahead, but I think working together, I think would be the right way to go for me.
So collaboration is the way forward for us. So thank you so much, Ranjit. That were all the questions that were there from my side. If there's anybody who wants to ask any questions from the audience, please feel free. Okay, so I think we can wrap this up then. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. What an amazing and insightful panel discussion we have just had. It's when we come together, share knowledge and challenge our thinking, we drive progress and innovation. Certainly, there are many challenges, but we need to understand that there is no planet B, and there is an immediate need to make circular economy a reality. So now I would like to invite Mr. Amit Sethi on stage to present mementos.
Come closer for a photo.
Yeah. Please come closer for a photo. So, we present our gratitude to Ms. Vibhuti Sharma, our panel moderator, Ms. Khushbu Maheshwari, Mr. Ranjit, Mr. Garvit, and Mr. Vivek Mehra. So we thank them for having a great panel discussion.